HEMA is full of pussies. Now I want to get something off my chest, alright? It's in the title. I've actually also just said it. And it is that HEMA is, in fact, full of pussies. Now, before I say anything, I want to say that I always advocate safety. I always tell you guys to choose safety before anything, to get protective gear and be safe, because if you break something or seriously get hurt, or even worse than that, then, you know, that's just, well, I don't have to explain to you why getting your eyeball stabbed out would be quite annoying. Now, I have fenced with a lot of people from different schools in different parts of the world, and I have noticed that people that do just HEMA and do nothing but HEMA very often, not always, but very often, tend to be quite, you know, scared to get hit, as if they forget that they are practicing getting hit with swords, or hitting each other with swords at least. And I've noticed that people that have a reenactment background, for example, now I have a lot of problems with reenactment fighting, but people that have a background in reenactment, they tend to be okay with getting a bruise occasionally. And maybe it's because the school where I primarily practice, we're not just a HEMA school, we also do reenactment. We also do shows in choreography, like we do kicks, we do throws, we have shows with steel weapons without any protection at all. And I'm not saying that this is necessarily a good thing, but it creates a mentality where if you get hurt, you just kind of shrug it off, right? Unless it is a serious injury, like you just kind of shrug it off. Like just last week, somebody got hit in the head and she has a concussion. What did she do? Oh, she just got some ice. There you go. That's not necessarily a good thing, but you know, it creates this mentality where, ouch, I got hurt. Oh well, it happens, because, well, I'm a fucking sword fighter. It happens. A few months ago, I was at another school, it was close by, and I knew some people that knew their people, so I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna take a look there. And I was there, I just followed the lesson, and then at the end of the lesson there was time for free sparring, and they started complaining about me not having enough joint protection, which I can get behind. I gotta say, joint protection is of course very important. If you fuck up your joints, like your knees or your elbows, they will hurt a lot, and if you seriously fuck it up, that could, you know, possibly cause troubles for the rest of your life. So I can get behind that, but it also limits your mobility. If you're a skinny boy, it tends to slide off. It's annoying. So, but whatever. They wanted me to have extra joint protection before going into the fight. So that was fine. They had stuff that I could borrow, so they packed me in. I felt like a fucking armadillo, but whatever. At the end, there was another problem, because I was fighting barefooted there. The hall which we were in was a very open hall. There were no mats or anything, and the ground was very slippery for some fucking reason. I got very cheap, very light shoes. The soles are pretty much flat at the bottom, so I was just slipping, sliding all over the shop. So I was fighting barefooted, which I don't think is a problem. Because I've seen other HEMA fencers do it as well. So, you know, whatever. I was just fighting barefooted because that way I had more grip. And they started complaining about me not having any foot protection. I'm not kidding. They went like, apparently, I didn't even notice, but apparently SSIES has this, which is a brand of HEMA protective gear. They have this little part that you're supposed to have at like the top of your foot that protects like the front of your ankle. Which is like, I don't know what it's called, but it's like, can you see that? It protects this part. I'm wearing Donald Duck socks. So it's just a little cup that goes over the front of your foot. It doesn't even protect half of your foot, right? And I didn't have that. And they were saying like, oh, you should have that. This is dangerous, because I was being barefooted. And I was like, dude, really? Like, how often do you get smacked in the foot? And the entire school went like, well, like it's a common thing. I'm sorry, but I don't think I've ever been smacked in the foot ever before. I mean, what I can guess that possibly happened is there are some kicks in HEMA, not a lot, but usually if you see a kick, it's like a kick to the groin area, or the lower part of the stomach, to kind of like distract your opponent, create an opening, and then strike with your sword. There are some, but very few kicks in HEMA. So it's possible that somebody tried a kick and then he got hurt, because there aren't a lot of kicks in HEMA, because if somebody kicks your way, it's very easy to just go chop and chop their leg off. So maybe something like that happened. Somebody got struck in the foot and he hurt his foot. Okay, but if I wear that little piece at basically the front of my ankle, like this part, and you chop me in the front of the foot, you still break my toes. So what's the goddamn point? Honestly, I'm not gonna be angry if you manage to break my foot in a sword fight, okay? If we're sword fighting and you break my foot, I will applaud you, because fucking hell, well done, you broke my goddamn foot. But it gets even worse. It gets even worse. That wasn't so bad. But just yesterday, actually, I was in another school, which is not as close by, but you know, I know the people there. So I went there for the second time yesterday, and I walked in, and right off the bat I noticed that nobody had a steel sword, which doesn't necessarily have to be a bad sign, because personally I think that nylon swords, that nylon trainers, they have a place. They are very useful. That's why I have one as well. It's right there. But you know, there are certain upsides towards having a steel sword. Quite a few clear upsides to having a steel sword. And there were some people that have had full gear, full HEMA gear, but they didn't have a steel sword. At that point, I'm kind of starting to get iffy, because really, like, one of the benefits of having nylon weapons is that you don't need full gear. There's really no need to wear full HEMA gear if you're gonna use a rolling synthetic, right? So it's better off to get some HEMA gear and fight with a rolling synthetic and then get a steel sword or a fader quicker, in my opinion, but whatever. Anyway, they were all using nylon swords, and I had mine with me, so it was fine. Now, after the lesson, again, there was time to spar, and the teacher put me up against this one guy that I had practiced before. I talked a bit before with him before the lesson, and he had no protective gear at all. He had red dragon gloves, he had a fencing mask with no back of the head protector, and a rolling synthetic longsword. And I just had all my gear on, pretty much full gear. The only thing that I don't have covered really is the top of my legs. And that is because, yeah, personally, again, people might disagree with me, but you don't really need protection on the top of your legs. Strikes to the legs don't happen a lot in HEMA. There's various reasons why strikes to the legs don't happen a lot, because one of the reasons is you expose your head. You have less reach if you strike low than you have when you strike high. Also, if you want to take it into account in tournaments, like heads and torsos are more points than legs. All the Versetzen come from above. Like, there's just a lot more Oberhaus than there are Unterhaus. They're more powerful as well. Oberhaus are more powerful. So, well. Anyway, I didn't really have much protection on my upper legs, because if I get smacked there, oh well, I have a bruise and I just continue on with my life, right? So this guy that I was fencing against, he was noticeably scared of me. He was right from the start. He was like, "Oh, but you have so much more experience, blah blah." And I was like, "Okay, whatever, chill, dude, it's fine." So he was the biggest wiggler I've ever seen in my life. We started fencing, and a wiggler is somebody that stays in long point, basically. So it's very often that you see beginning fencers and scared fencers. They pull back to this position, right? They have their head back, their main foot very far forward, their sword in front of them, and they're just wailing, and with every strike that they throw their head back and their main foot forward. It's very common with beginning fencers. So anyway, he was doing that a lot. He was fencing arguably in a not so skillful way, if I may say so myself. And I was pretty much left to defend, because I didn't want to hurt him and he didn't really have any gear. So I was just on a defense, and all the masters teach you to be aggressive. If you're on a defense, you will pretty much always lose. But there was no place that I could really attack him without hurting him, so I was just defending. And I threw some lunges towards his face, some cuts at his face, which he all parried very expertly. So it was quite clear that he's been doing that and nothing but that for a very long time. It's the same problem with karate, that in karate you're not allowed to throw punches at the face, you're only allowed to throw kicks at the face. So karateka, they very quickly develop blind spots to punches to the face, because they're just not used to getting them. This guy was doing the same thing, but the exact opposite way. He was developing a blind spot to getting hit anywhere but his face. His entire fighting style was based around not getting hit in the face, throwing his head back with every strike he did, and the only attacks that you could do were just direct strikes and then pulling back, because if you would go in for a jab and then a Swerkau to the other side, if you would smack him in the neck or on the shoulder instead of on the mask, he wouldn't have protection. If he would turn his head away from your strike, he didn't have a back of the head protector, so you would smack him in the back of the head. So you're pretty much unable to do anything except very short stabs or strikes at his face. which he was very good at blocking. So at some point, because he was engaging, he was attacking so aggressively. He was like a fucking baboon on steroids, just going like wang, wang, wang. And I, at some point, decided, oh, I'm gonna throw a little tap towards the legs. Kind of to show him, like, dude, you are opening your legs up. The way that you're fighting now, you're not fighting effectively because your legs are open. And I just explained, like, there's not a lot of hits towards the legs in sword fighting. If your opponent can easily hit you in the legs, you are quite clearly doing something wrong, because they're just not a lot of them in longsword fighting, I mean. So, you know, I gave him a little tap on the legs and he got upset. He got seriously upset. He stopped right there. It was like, dude, I'm not wearing any protective gear on my legs, blah, blah. And I was like, no, but neither am I. You know, so... Yeah, anyway, he got upset. He went like, yeah, but you have way more experience and this and that, and I'm not wearing gear and you could see that. Why did you do that? And I was like, well, I did that to show that you were open on your legs, and I'm not wearing any gear either. So what's the problem? He went like, but you hit way too hard. And I was like, dude, what? I have pretty much been doing nothing this entire match. I've just been holding back. I've been pulling back. I've just been defending. I barely attacked you. So what do you mean I hit way too hard? I barely hit you at all. He was like, no, you hit way too hard. You hit me in the leg because he had a little bruise on his leg. So I said at that point, dude, that wasn't hard. This is hard. Swoosh, and I swung. And I didn't even hit him. I know what it sounds like. It sounds like I beat him up. But I didn't. I just swung full speed next to him to show him, like, dude, I wasn't, you know, actually going full speed. That's hard. And he threw a sword over to the side and said, I'm gonna quit sword fighting. And he ran away into the dressing room. I shit you not. Like, the teacher, like, fucking convinced him to not because he was back later. But I was like, what do you mean? What do you fucking mean? Because you got hit in the legs, you throw your sword over to the side, get an anger attack and leave? I'm sure that I'm sure that this doesn't apply just to HEMA, because I've had it in other martial arts as well. Like in Kyokushin Karate, I had my sensei come up to me asking if I could kick less hard, because some of the students were afraid to spar with me because I very often send people flying on their butts with kicks. And I was like, what? I chose Kyokushin Karate because apparently that is the most spar-centered form of karate. Right? It's the most combat centered, and we're already wearing these fucking, where are they? These things. We're already wearing these padded fucking pieces of shit on our legs to make it softer for people. No, I'm not gonna hold back my kicks. Okay? And I had the exact same thing with kickboxing as well, actually, when I was set up to spar. This wasn't full contact sparring. This was just, you know, supposed to be light, fun sparring, but I was set up against somebody. And I was just standing with my gloves, and I threw the first jab very gently, very slowly at her face, just to show, you know, oh, your face is open. And she started crying. She started crying. And again, I'm gonna quit. This is not for me. I'm like, I'm sorry, but if you want to practice a martial art, you're gonna have to expect to get hit, right? I mean, honestly, the thing is, any reason why people might get into HEMA or anything sword related, people like swords, any reason is a good reason for me, right? And if, like, contrary to my RANT, the way that I feel about it, I feel like anybody could learn to be a fighter. Some people should, you know, need to put a little bit more effort into it than other people. Some people are just naturally good, others are not. But if you are not made to be a fighter, let's say that, right? I still think you could learn if you put time in it, but if you're not made for it, if you're not built of the right stuff, then fucking go play chess, okay? Or Stratego, right? Because those things simulate a battlefield, and then you won't get boo-boos. If you can take getting a hit, then you have no business practicing a martial art. Honestly, like, I mean, it sucks to get hit. Like, even good martial artists, nobody likes getting punched in the face or hit in the legs with a sword. But I'm just saying, it's part of the sport that you do. If you want to practice HEMA, and you know that you are not good at taking hits like that would bother you a lot, that you would get scared, then you know, you gotta take measures to counter that. You gotta either not spar, or wait until you have enough gear, just full gear to spar, use lighter weapons that hurt less to spar. There are plenty of tools on the market to do that, even if you don't like getting bruises and stuff. Right, so... I don't know a good end to this video. How long have I been talking? Anyway, I think I got my point across. This guy was just a huge pussy. I have fucked women with more balls than this guy. And there's many, many more of him in the HEMA community. And that is sad. That is just sad. I think it's just sad. You don't have to be a big badass to be a sword fighter, to be a HEMA fencer. Absolutely not. Like a lot of the most successful sword fighters, like some of the best HEMA fencers in the world, they're actually quite skinny, sad-looking people. Like both the men and the women. Like a lot of them are quite a little bit overweight. A lot of them are actually exceptionally skinny. You know, you don't have to be a big badass to be a sword fighter, not at all. But getting hits, it's part of the sport that you practice. You know, regardless of if you want to view HEMA as a martial art or a sport, because some people don't even really view it as a martial art. I personally think it's quite in the middle, but either way, if it's a martial art, it's a martial art and you hit each other. And if it's not a martial art, it's a sport, but a sport in which you practice hitting each other. So you gotta keep in mind that you're gonna get hit. It's part of the game, essentially. Right? And that's the reason why I for example, respect people that do bowhurt quite a lot, and why I like bowhurt and why I want to do it. Like, there's a lot of criticism that I have on bowhurt, because it's for the most part it's people angrily wailing at each other with stuff, equipment and weapons that slightly resemble medieval attire, but not really. But on the other hand, like, it takes serious stamina and strength to do that, and it takes some serious balls to get in there and get your fucking head beaten to shit. And I have the same with lots of different other sports, like rugby, for example, right? So, like, I respect those people for that. It takes balls and strength to do these things. And HEMA arguably does not take balls or strength. It is a martial art which you can pretty much, as the skinniest, weakest person ever, still make name for yourself just because you do the techniques properly. If you have full gear, you're not really gonna get hurt. At most, you're gonna get a bruise. But if you cannot take that bruise, boy, that's it. That's all he had, by the way. He had I hit him on the upper leg, and he had a little bruise. So yeah, if you stuck around this long, you might as well subscribe. Also follow me on social media. Links are in the description below. And thank you for joining my quest, and I hope you'll join me in the next one. Bye, guys.